Thank you for joining in. We're going to be reading the Duino Elegies. Um, yeah, I don't know how many we'll read. I don't have much in me today. I don't even know how many elegies there are, really. Yeah, I should look into that. Let's see. At least 10. Um, it appears there are 10 elegies. Okay. So, a little bit less than the combined sonnets. And we'll see what these are all about. I'm not really sure what the theme is going into them. I don't have any context, but it's Rilke, so it's going to be good. The first elegy. Who, if I cried out, would hear me among the angels' orders? And even if one of them pressed me suddenly to his heart, I'd be consumed in his more potent being. For beauty is nothing but the beginning of terror, which we can still barely endure. And while we stand in wonder, it coolly disdains to destroy us. Every angel is terrifying. And so I grip myself and choke down that call note of dark sobbing. Ah, whom can we turn to in our need? Not angels, not humans, and the sly animals see at once how little at home we are in the interpreted world that leaves us some tree on a slope to which our eyes returned day after day leaves us yesterday's street and the coddled loyalty of an old habit that liked it here, lingered, and never left. Oh, and the night, when the wind full of world space gnaws at our faces, for whom won't the night be there? Desired, softly disappointing, setting hard tasks for the single heart. Is it easier on lovers? Ah, they only use each other to mask their fates. You still don't see? Fling the emptiness in your arms. Out into the spaces we breathe, perhaps the birds will feel the increase of the air with more passionate flight. Yes, the springs needed you. Many a star was waiting for your eyes only. A wave swelled toward you. Out of the past, or as you walked by the open window, a violin inside surrendered itself to pure passion. All that was your charge. But were you strong enough? Weren't you always distracted by expectation, as though each such moment presaged a beloved's coming? But where would you keep her? With all those big, strange thoughts in you, going and coming and sometimes staying all night? No, in the grip of longing sing women who loved. Their prodigious feeling lacks an undying fame. The abandoned ones you almost envy, since you found them so much deeper in love than those whom love allayed. Being, begin ever anew in their impossible praise. Remember, the hero lives on. Even his downfall was only a pretext for attained existence, his ultimate birth. But nature, exhausted, takes women in love back to herself, as though she lacked the strength to create them a second time. Have you praised Gaspara Stampa intently enough that any girl left by her lover will be moved by this heightened instance of a woman's heart to cry out, "Let me be as she was"? Isn't it time these most ancient sorrows at last bore fruit? Time we tenderly detached ourselves from the loved one and, trembling, stood free. The way the arrow, suddenly all vector, survives the string to be more than itself, for abiding is nowhere. Voices, voices, listen, my heart, the way only saints have listened till now, as that vast call lifted them from the ground while they kept on kneeling and noticed nothing, those impossible ones, listeners fully absorbed. Not that you could bear God's voice, not at all, but listen to the wind's breathing, the unbroken news that takes shape out of silence. It's rustling toward you from all the youthful dead. When you entered a church in Rome or Naples, didn't their fate speak quietly to you? Or an inscription echoed deep within you? As, not long ago, that tablet in Santa Maria Formosa, their charge to me, that I gently dispel the air of injustice that sometimes hinders a little their spirit's pure movement. Granted, it's strange to dwell on earth no more, to cease observing customs barely learned, not to give roses and other things of such promise a meaning in some human future, to stop being what one was in endlessly anxious hands, and ignore even one's own name like a broken toy. Strange not to go on wishing one's wishes. Strange to see all that was once so interconnected drifting in space. And death exacts a labor, a long finishing of things half done before one has that first feeling of eternity. But the living all make the same mistake they distinguish too sharply. Angels, it's said, often don't know whether they're moving among the living or the dead. The eternal current sweeps all the ages with it through both kingdoms, forever, and drowns their voices in both. In the end, those torn from us early no longer need us. Slowly, one becomes unaccustomed to earthly things. In the gentle way one leaves a mother's breast, but we who need such great mysteries, for whom we so often blessed the progress, springs from grief. Could we exist without them? Feel like I'm gonna need to revisit this poem to really understand it. But that line, the way the arrow, suddenly all vector, survives the string to be more than itself. That's an incredible metaphor. Time we tenderly detached ourselves from the loved one and, trembling, stood free. The way the arrow, suddenly all vector, survives the string to be more than itself. Ooh, that's really good. I feel like this is a really reassuring poem almost. And it's speaking to really deep things, but I'm going to examine it. I'm going to examine it on a more superficial level, and just look at how it's celebrating individuality and becoming the self, that becomes more self through the act of expanding beyond the earthly world, perhaps. Okay, I'm seeing a theme here. The second elegy. Every angel is terrifying, and yet, alas, I still sing to you. Almost fatal birds of the soul, knowing what you bring, where are the days of Tobias? When one of your most radiant stood at the simple doorway, partly disguised for the trip and no longer frightening, to the youth who peered out curiously, a youth like him. Were the archangel now to emerge behind the stars and take just one downward step this way, our own thundering hearts would slay us. Who are you? Favored first prodigies, creation's darlings, mountain ranges, peaks, dawn red ridges, of all Genesis, pollen of a flowering godhead, links of light, corridors, stairways, thrones, spaces of being, shields of rapture, torrents of unchecked ecstatic feeling, and then suddenly, singly, mirrors scooping their outstreamed beauty back into their peerless faces. For our part, when we feel, we evaporate, Ah, we breathe ourselves out and away from ember to ember. We give off a fainter scent. True, someone may tell us, you're in my blood, this room, the spring itself is full of you. But why? He can't hold us. We vanish in and around him, and the beautiful ones, ah, who holds them back? Appearance ceaselessly flares in their faces and vanishes. Like dew from the morning grass, what's ours rises from us, the way the heat lifts from a steaming dish. Oh, smile, going where? Oh, upturned look, new, warm, departing surge of the heart. Alas, we are the surge. Then does the cosmic space that we dissolve in taste of us? Do the angels recapture only what's theirs, their ceaseless streamings? Or sometimes, as if by accident, does a bit of ours get mixed in? Are we blended in their features like the slight vagueness that complicates the looks of pregnant women, unnoticed by them as they swirl back into themselves? How could they notice? Lovers, if only they understood, might speak wondrously in the night air, for everything, it seems, seeks to conceal us. Look, the trees exist, the houses we dwell in stand there stalwartly. Only we pass it all by like a rush of air, and it all conspires to keep quiet about us, half out of shame, perhaps, half from some secret hope. Lovers, secure in one another, I ask you about us. You hold each other. Have you assurances? It sometimes happens that my hands grow conscious of each other, or else my weary face takes refuge in them. That gives me a slight self sensation. Yet who, from something so unwarranted, would dare conclude, I am? You, though, who keep increasing through the other's rapture until overwhelmed each begs the other, no more. You, who in each hands flourish like vines in vintage years. You who disappear sometimes only because the other grows rampant. I ask you about us. I know you touch so fervently because the caress protects, because the place you cover, O tender ones, doesn't vanish because underneath you feel pure permanence. Thus your embraces almost promise you eternity. And yet, when you've passed the terror of the first look and the long yearning at the window and the first walk, the one walk together through the garden, lovers, have you survived? When you lift yourselves to each other's lips and kiss, drink unto drink. Oh, how strangely then the drinker slips from the deed. Remember those attic stellae, how amazed you were at the caution of human gestures, at the way love and parting were so lightly laid on their shoulders, as if made of other stuff from ours, and their hands how they touched without pressure, even though such strength is in the torsos. That those self-mastered ones knew, this far we can go, this much is ours, to touch this way. The gods press down on us more forcefully, but that's for the gods. If only we too could find a pure, carved out, narrow, human place, our own small strip of fertile soil between stream and stone. For even now our heart transcends us, just as it did those others, and no longer can we gaze after it into images that soothe it, or into godlike bodies where it finds a higher restraint. The third elegy. It's one thing to sing the loved one, another, alas, to sing that hidden, guilty river god of the blood. Her young lover, whom she knows so distantly, what sense has he, that of that lord of lust, who often, roused from solitude, before she could soothe him, and often as though she herself were nothing, ah, roused from what unsounded depths, lifts his streaming godhead, inciting the night to infinite uproar. Oh, the blood's Neptune! Oh, his terrible trident! Oh, the dark wind of his beast from the whirl of the shell! Listen as the night becomes tunneled and cave-like. You stars, does not the lover's delight in his loved one's face come from you? Does not his passionate oneness with her pure countenance derive from the pure constellations? But not for your sight, girl, nor his mother's, are his eyebrows arched this taut with expectation. Not for your mouth, you who hold him now, have his lips fleshed into these fervent contours. Do you really think your footsteps could have convulsed him so, you who move like dawn wind? True, you startled his heart, but older terrors rushed into him with that first jolt to his emotions. Call him. You'll never quite retrieve him from those dark consorts. Yes, he wants to. He escapes. Relieved, he makes a home in your familiar heart, takes root there and begins himself again. But did he ever begin himself? Mother, you made him small. It was you who started him. For you he was new, and over his new eyes you arched the friendly world, keeping the strange one out. Where are those years when, with your slender form, you stood calmly between him and his surging chaos? How much you hid from him that way, everything sinister in his room at night you made harmless. From your heart full of refuge, you poured a more human space into his own shadowy world. You placed the nightlight not in the darkness, but in your own nearer being where it shone like a friend. The slightest noise, and you explained it, smiling, as though you'd long known just when each floorboard would creak. And he listened and was soothed. Your quiet entrance had such command his tall, cloaked destiny slipped behind the wardrobe, and his unsettled future, altering slightly, conformed to the curtain's folds. And he, lying there, relieved, savoring under drowsy eyelids the sweetness of your gentle presence as it dissolved into the first hints of sleep. He seemed well guarded, but within, who fended there? Who checked the floods of origin within him? Ah, in that sleeper there was no caution, sleeping, but a dreaming, and in a kind of fever, what paths he took, he so shy, so unwary, how embroiled he became. With all those spreading tendrils of inner event already wrought into primitive patterns, into throttling growth, into prowling, animal like forms, how he surrendered himself. Loved loved his interior world, his secret jungle, that primeval forest within him on whose mute floor of ancient downfall his heart stood, shimmering green. Loved, forsook it, followed his own roots out into that violent source world where his small birth seemed all but nothing, loving, descended into the elder blood, into the ravines where things hideous lay, still gorged with fathers. And every terror recognized him, winked, seemed to understand. Yes, horror smiled at him. So seldom, mother, did you smile that tenderly? How could he not love what smiled at him that way? Before you, he loved it. For it was there even while you bore him, dissolved in the fluid that lightens the embryo. You see, we don't love like flowers, the work of just 1 year. Sap from time immemorial mounts in our arms when we love. Oh, girl, it's this that we've loved within us, not someone, some future person, but the whole weltering brood, not a separate child, but the fathers who lie like mountain ruins deep within us, and the dried riverbed of former mothers, and the whole soundless landscape beneath our cloudy or cloudless fate. All this, girl, claimed him first. And you yourself, unwittingly, you conjured primal time in your lover. What feelings writhed up out of the beings long since vanished? What women within him hated you? Who were these shrouded men you raised in his youthful veins? Dead children reached for you. Oh, gently, gently, show him the love in a calm, everyday task. Lead him close to the guard him, give him those nights that still the scales, temper him. Wow, that was incredible. What a profound meditation on, I don't want to say animal, maybe primal root of like, I guess animal longing and lust and love, and the way another person can temper that within you. Rilke started those first two elegies pondering the meaning of love, having a lover, being intimately connected to someone, and asking what sacrifice of the self that requires. But then he addresses that by showing us the temperament that is necessary that comes from that bond. Hmm. Maybe I'm just saying stuff. Okay, we're gonna read 4 and 5, and I'm going to sleep. The fourth elegy. Oh, trees of life, how long till winter? We lack connection, aren't in touch like the migratory birds. Outmoded, late, we thrust ourselves abruptly on winds and fall, exhausted on indifferent waters. Blooming makes us think, fading, and somewhere out there lions still roam, unmindful in their great splendor of any weakness. We, though, even when intent on one thing wholly, can feel the costs extracted by some other. Enmities, our next of kin, aren't lovers always meeting boundaries in each other? When the promise was of vastness, royal hunting, home, then, for an instant's virtuoso sketch, a ground of contrast is prepared laboriously, so we can see it, for they're very clear. With us, we don't know our feelings' contours, only what molds them from without. Who hasn't sat trembling before his heart's curtain? Up it went, the scenery for parting, easy to understand, the familiar garden, swaying slightly, then enter the dancer. Not him, enough. However light he foots it, it's all disguise, and he becomes a burgher who walks through his kitchen into his living room. I loathe watching these half-filled masks. Give me the puppet. It's true, at least. I can take the husk of body and wire and the face that's pure surface. Right here, I'm out in front. Even when the lights go out, even when someone says to me it's over, even when from the stage a great gust of emptiness drifts toward me, even when not one silent ancestor sits beside me anymore. Not a woman, not even the boy with the brown squint eye. I'll sit here still. One can always watch. Am I not right? You, Father, for whom life became so bitter when you tasted mine, that first murky influx of what would feed my needs, who, as I grew older, continued sampling, and, perplexed by the aftertaste of so strange a future, tried searching my vague clouded gaze. You, Father, who, now that you're dead, often lodge in my deepest hopes, full of fear, forfeiting that equanimity the dead have, entire kingdoms of equanimity, for my bit of fate. Am I not right? And you, woman, am I not right? You who have loved me for that small, hesitating love for you I always veered away from, because I felt the space in your faces, even as I loved it, changing into world space where you were absent. What if I do choose to wait in front of the puppet stage? No, to stare with so much force that finally, to counteract my look, an angel will arrive as puppeteer and jerk life into these hard husks. Angel and puppet, at last the play begins. Then what we wedge apart, simply by our being here, unites. Then, from the separate seasons of our life, that one great wheel of transformation mounts. Above and out beyond us, the angel plays, the dying, surely they must see how all the things that we achieve here are full of pretext. Nothing is what it is, O childhood hours, when behind each shape there was more than the mere past and before us, not the future. True, we were growing, and we often spurred ourselves to grow up faster, have to oblige those who had nothing of their own except adulthood. And yet, off alone, we were happiest with what always stayed the same, and we stood there, in the space between world and toy, on a spot which, from the first beginning, had been established for a pure event. Who shows a child just as he is? Who sets him in a constellation and hands him the measure of distance and interval? Who makes a child's death out of gray beard that bread that hardens, or leaves it in his round mouth like the core of a beautiful apple? Murderers are easily understood, but this one's death, the whole reach of death, even before life starts, to hold it gently and not feel anger is indescribable. Hmm. All right, so we've moved from a meditation on the necessity of a partnership of love to tame our primeval emotions to a contemplation on childhood and dying young, I suppose. Not a poem I need to revisit. Thanks for joining us, Aiden. We are reading the Duino Elegies by Rilke himself, and they are excellent so far. Um, yeah, here we are on to the fifth elegy, dedicated to Fra Hertha Coing. Um, okay, so he dedicated to someone who bought a Picasso painting, and he lived in their apartment while they were on vacation, living with Picasso's work. Um, so I guess this poem will be inspired by a painting, which is ekphrasis. And we know Rilke is an ekphrastic poet, um, at least in his development. And personally, this is way off topic. I think looking at galleries, art galleries, seeing paintings, so inspiring. And it really opens up new channels of seeing how structures can form and interact with one another. Um, and even if it doesn't obviously inform your poetry, you have to think that there's something subconscious going on. It's expanding your neural pathways, perhaps. I think art is very important for the practice of poetry. But anyway, the fifth elegy. But tell me, who are they, these wanderers, more rootless even than we ourselves, seized early on and urgently wrenched, for whose possible sake, by some never satisfied will, and it still wrings them, bends them, twists them, and slings them, tosses and catches them, as if though through smoother, frictionless air they drop down onto the threadbare carpet worn even thinner by their eternal leaping, this carpet lost in the universe, laid down like a bandage, as if the jagged sky of city edges had wounded the earth there, and scarcely in place, upright, held for display, that initial letter from their body's alphabet, when already the grip returns, rolling them again, even the strongest ones, as if in some jest, like Augustus the strong at table, crumpling a pewter plate. Ah, and around the center, the rows of onlooking, blooming and shedding petals. Around this pestle, the pistil dusted with its own pollen, impregnated once more to bear the feigned fruit of boredom, boredom self-concealed beneath the thinnest glaze of rote smiling. There, the withered strong man, his skin all folds, the old one, who only drums now, shriveled inside his great physique, as though it once held two men, and now one lies dead in the churchyard, and he survived that other, death and sometimes a bit confused in his widowed skin. But there the young one, the full man, who might be the offspring of a neck and a nun, strapping and stretched taut, with sinews and simpleness. Oh, you all, given once as a plaything to a young grief, something to entertain it during one of its long convalescences. First you, who with the thud only unripe fruit know, fall 100 times daily from that tree of intermeshed movements. Tree swifter than water, traversing spring, summer, autumn, all in a few moments. Fall and rebound from the grave. Sometimes, in the briefest pause, a loving look tries to rise in you and reach across to your seldom tender mother, but it disperses over your body, whose surface quickly absorbs that shy, scarcely attempted face, and again the man clasps his hands for the dismount, and before a hurt can reach your always galloping heart to become clear at its origin, the burning in your foot soles overtakes it, driving into your eyes mere physical tears, and, nevertheless, blindly, the smile. Angel, oh take it, pluck it, that small-petaled herb of healing. Create a vase, preserve it, place it among those joys not yet open to us in a delicate urn. Let the ornate inscription praise it. Subrisio salatat. Then you, my sweetest, you whom the most ravishing joys leapt over soundlessly, perhaps your fringes feel happy for you, or the green metallic silk that covers your firm young breasts feels endlessly pampered and in need of nothing. You, market fruit of equanimity, ever placed differently on the scales of a wavering equipoise, a public thing amid shoulders? Where is that place? I carry it in my heart, where for so long they were still not able, still fell away from each other like mismatched animals trying to mate, where the weights are still heavy, where the plates still topple from the waves that spin and spin in vain. And suddenly, in this effort filled nowhere, suddenly the ineffable point where the pure too little mysteriously converts, flips over into the empty too much, point where the complex equation achieves zero. Squares, oh town squares in Paris, infinite showplace, where the modest Madame Lamorte loops and binds the restless roads of the earth, unending ribbons, designing new bows, faddish frills, flowers, cockades, fake fruit, all falsely dyed for the cheap winter hats of fate. Angel, suppose there is a place we don't know of, and there, on an indescribable carpet, lovers blazoned all, those feats never mastered here, the bold, high figures of their heart leaps across space, their towers of pure pleasure, their two ladders, that stand leaning only against each other, with no ground underneath trembling, and performed them before the circle of onlookers, the innumerable silent dead, wouldn't these then throw their last coins of happiness, hoarded for a lifetime, kept hidden for a lifetime, unknown to us, eternally valid, before a pair now truly smiling at last on the quieted carpet? Huh. Well, there's certainly themes happening and metaphors that are kind of beyond me at this juncture of energy and awareness. Um, but we can return to this little line right here, the point where the complex equation achieves zero. And, that kind of takes me back to gravity's rainbow, as all things do. Um, but Rilke is quoted in that novel a few times. Um, and the corollary between equations equating to zero and the themes in Gravity's Rainbow is awfully close. So I'm wondering where Pynchon was at when he was writing that book. Was he reading these elegies as well? Do we share that literary history? I don't know. No one can say. Um, but yeah, that was the first 5 of the Duino elegies out of 10. I've been reading for longer than anticipated. So thank you all for joining, and we'll finish them off probably tomorrow.